Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our communities. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And oh my goodness, here we are, season 6, and I have another special guest for you. As today I'm talking with Kim Laughlin. She's the owner of Cultural Apex Coaching, where they help organizations get to the apex of their breath by using soft skills for hard people problems. Kim, I'm so excited to have you on the show. How you doing today?
I'm great, and thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh my goodness. And as we kick off the show, I always like to reflect on like when I met my guests or when they came into my path. Many guests I've met before, and we recently met a few weeks ago, but we were introduced by a good friend of mine and yours, Rex Jones. How do you know Rex?
Well, we're in the same networking organization together, and we have been blessed to meet each other in Texas several times for the business summit. So,
Yeah, he's amazing. Rex Jones with On Demand HR. I get to serve with Rex through Dallas HR, and he is phenomenal. I'm so glad that he connected us, and I'm excited to talk about leadership today. Hey, just so for those who aren't familiar with Cultural Apex Coaching, share just a brief highlight on like how do you serve your customers?
yeah. I just a 30-second spot. I was director of HR for many years,
Hmm.
and learned a lot of the goods and the bads of having a good culture and a not so good culture. And so it was what I thought was going to be a very tactical role, turned into be something very, very different. And so it was an amazing opportunity to realize the importance of work beyond in the office environment,
Hmm.
beyond the work itself. It's about the people. I always say that you can love who you work with or for, and you'll do a job that you don't really care about.
Hmm.
But you can do a job you love, but if you don't like who you work with or for, it can be a rough go.
Hmm. Isn't
Yeah,
that the truth? You know,
yeah,
when you said you've been in jobs where you've seen good cultures and you've seen not so good cultures, I can relate, and I know the listeners can relate with that. And sometimes I think to myself, man, I do not want to be in this culture or this environment, but yet that's where the like I was put there for a reason, so I could really learn and see what that's like. So a lot of times I say when you're in a difficult environment or culture that you don't really agree with, it's really can be a good thing, can't it? Because you can see like, hey, I see what it looks like now, right?
yeah. What I thought was, oh my gosh, what have I done when I took the role? Turned into be a blessing. And so I look back and say it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I would love to hear like, okay, so where did you grow up? Where are you coming from today? Where'd you grow up? And how in the world, like what led you to start your own company and really help people with leadership?
I come from a little town called Hingham, Massachusetts.
Mm,
And yeah. So born and raised in Massachusetts. I'm a New England girl. I moved out to California for a little bit, but then came back. And I always had a love for the corporate world.
mm,
And so I went to school for business, and the rest is history. It just kept getting roles. And over the years, I realized how important it was to have a boss that I liked. They didn't necessarily have to be good to me. They were hard, maybe, and really expected a lot, but the way they approached things was always fascinating to me because I can remember my bosses, but I always remember the roles that I that I performed at the time. And I always said I wanted to have a legacy like that at some point.
Do you remember when you were like in college? Did you know what HR was at that time?
Had no idea. I had no idea. I just knew it was human resources, didn't
Yeah.
know until I started getting roles, just regular jobs.
Yeah, that's so good. I remember getting my business management degree because I was just like, I just wanted to go out and get a job.
Yeah,
And I joined a company that provided relocation services, and I had no idea what relocation was before I even started that. And that's why I think that that's one of the things I enjoy today is getting to talk to younger people
mhm.
and sharing that, you don't really have to have all the answers when you get out. You just have to get started, right?
That's right. Just take the first step. Don't overthink it, as I always say.
I love that. I love it. So you were in the corporate world for many years, serving in HR, and then you pivoted to start your own company. I always like to ask a question around, like, when was that moment when you found your lane, when you really said, "Hey, I really found what I love doing. I found my calling. I found my purpose." Was there a moment when, is there a story behind that, or was there moments?
Yeah, there were moments, but pivotal. I'm a psychology nerd. I love to kind of find out how people tick. I
Hmm.
love to understand what would it take to make them love Mondays.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I was in my HR role. I was quickly realizing that the managers were very tactical. They were there to kind of, delegate the work and so on and so forth. And everything was coming to the HR office for permission to do anything. And I said, this is selfishly, I thought this shouldn't have to be the case. And so what I did was I brought in some leadership training at the time. And what I found was that autonomy that the managers were really feeling empowered, where they didn't have to
Hmm.
they could make those decisions on their own. They were growing their team. The team members were excited. They were getting more engaged and empowered. And I thought, wow, it has a bigger impact than I even thought it would.
Hmm.
And the pivotal moment was at my about 10 years being in director of HR. I had gone to and done a speaking event with some other HR folks. And I said, I finally love Mondays. And almost every one of them in the crowd gave me that look of perplexed. I don't think you know what you're talking about, Kim. And so when the company was ready to scale to sell, I said, you know what, don't take me with you. I think I'm going to go out and talk to the masses.
Hmm.
And that was the moment. I said I love Mondays, but that was a very organic response to what I was speaking about at the time. And it's true. I think that everybody has an opportunity to have that as
Hmm.
well. And it's it's amazing.
Kim, that sounds like your next book. I love Monday.
Yeah. Don't get me started. I
I
might.
love that. I love that. Let's talk leadership here. I love to ask my guests the question around defining leadership. It seems like there's a lot of different definitions. How would you, like, if somebody said, "Hey, Kim, what's leadership to you?" How would
Yeah.
you define that?
So leadership to me is being there for your team. They're not there for you.
Mm,
Making sure that the folks that work in your downline or for you,
mm,
even colleagues, what are you doing to help them grow where they are?
mm,
And it's a very giving position when oftentimes it's a taking position, the ones that don't aren't successful. And that's what I find with my clients. I'm usually brought in because the leader is a little authoritarian. It's do as I say, just come to work, be on time, enjoy your job, be quiet. And there's not a lot of collaboration. Good leaders come in and they want to know, they want to know about their team members. They want to know what makes them tick. What motivates them.
mm,
What's going to want them to come and be the most productive individual contributor that they can be. And that's about being that servant leader
mm.
where that mindset is something that can really transform an organization.
Yeah, that's good. I was sharing with you last time we were talking about, I saw a survey and I've seen this many times around what do CEOs think about. And leadership development is always at the top.
Yeah.
Yet, whenever I go and I talk to different organizations, different people in my network, it seems like we all want to develop our leaders, but we're not really doing that with intention or purpose with the program. I don't know. What's your thoughts around that? And why do you think companies aren't invested in that as much as they should be?
Yeah, good question. I always say it's not a line on your P&L. And so it shows up. It's like I can make the analogy. Pay attention to your health, or your health's going to make you pay
Mm,
attention
mm,
to it. And I say that about your culture because you're not going to have it's $200 worth of toxic behavior in the office.
mm,
Uh, it's not a line item. And so you have to read between the lines. And oftentimes I think the C-level folks they're well intended. They just don't know what that means.
mm,
They just want people to come to work, behave, if I make it a little trivial, and just kind of do their job. But there's so much more that goes into it. There's so many more layers, and they just have to know where to start.
mm,
And a conversation with myself or people in the industry, just to kind of draw out what the problems are and what can be done, and really what is the result of getting some good
mm.
coaching with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that whenever you talk about checking your health versus checking your culture. Like, how does somebody, I don't know, are there some common traits to when you walk into an organization, you see these two or three things are like, oh my goodness, they are getting it done here. Or on the other side, oh my goodness, they need some help here.
Yeah.
Any thoughts around that?
Yes. The first thing that comes to mind, and there are many, but the first thing that comes to mind is there are the ones at work are the ones that meet with their teams, whether it's a group or one-on-one. The ones that don't are not getting as successful as they should be.
Hmm.
So the ones that nurture those relationships, that make the time for them, and really kind of listen to what their team has to say, feedback, anything that creates collaboration. Because without it, it's I just come to work, I'm a number to them. They don't care, they don't understand, and I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that's how the employees feel all the
Hmm.
time. So if they don't spend time with their folks, that creates a problem.
Yeah, I'm a big John Maxwell fan. You read much of John Maxwell?
Yes,
Oh my
absolutely.
goodness. But he has a saying, he always says, hey, you need to walk slowly through the crowd. And that's what he's talking about here, nurturing relationships. And I think many times we just get so busy. Busy, busy. I just need to report. I got
Yeah.
my kids at home. I got stuff going on, and we don't really nurture those relationships. For somebody listening to that, and by the way, I've taken already a full page of notes. I know there's listeners taking notes right now, but for someone listening, I don't know, maybe a couple of tips on how they might nurture relationships. I always like to talk about building relationships and how do you grow them? How do you keep them? How do you strengthen them? Any thoughts around that for the listeners?
Yes. So it's a tough one, but number one, I always say that there's a little bit of housekeeping. You have to have an open mind, and your ego has to kind of step to the side for any leaders. And that can be very difficult because what I'm going to ask them next is to ask their team the ultimate question.
Mm,
So for me, the ultimate question is, and I do this even as part of my group trainings, is I'll ask anybody in the organization that's sitting in front of me for the group training. I'll say, listen, I have one question for you. And well, actually, there's two, but the first one is the ultimate question. On a scale of 1 to 10, one being you're sick to your stomach on a Sunday night to go to work on Monday, or 10 being I get to go to work on Monday. Maybe even throw in a backflip there, right?
mm,
And so I say, just go ahead and write down a number from 1 to 10. What is it? And they all take a moment and they write down a number. And I say, well, if it isn't a 9 or a 10, what would it take to get from that number to a
mm,
9 or a 10? And that's the transformative answer. And I always tell the leaders, be open to whatever it is that they write down, because not everybody is articulate as they'd like to be, but it's a anonymous opportunity for folks to kind of give feedback.
mm,
And you'll often find that there isn't a relationship there. They're not
mm.
listening. There's that gap, and it needs to
Mm.
be kind of formed. And so it's
Yeah.
always about communication that is or isn't there.
Man, that is great, great information there. I know the listeners are getting a lot out of this conversation. I noticed that you created this Reach the Apex of Leadership. Can you talk about that? I don't know what is that all about, and maybe just a couple of things that the listeners might want to know about that.
So I've been in business doing this for 12 years now, coming up at the end of March of this year. I'm very proud of that. What I decided was I love my one-on-ones and I love going out and doing group trainings at organizations, and I'll still continue to do that. What
Okay.
I decided to do was create a course called Reach the Apex of Leadership, and it's anywhere from 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 months. And it covers everything from an emotional intelligence to intentional hiring.
Mm,
Because a lot of times these emerging leaders in the organization are hired for their tactical skills, but they're not always given those people skills. And you might have leaders that have been in the leadership role for a while and just never really got that leadership training.
mm,
So what this course does is it gives small cohorts. I make small groups, and we meet a couple of times a month with heavy support on all the things that they can bring with them that's challenging for them, but they learn a topic every single month, and we really dive in and peel that onion back, sorry for the cliche,
mm.
but on all the areas for those soft skills to even some tactical skills on the tail end of that, so that they can go to work knowing that they're doing the best they can for their team. People are going to want to talk to them. They're going to want to
Yeah.
communicate. There isn't this fear of the conversation, anything like that. We cover everything.
I think that's fascinating. I really like that. And one of the things I always think about when I think about different programs like that and leaders and organizations, one of the things they're looking at is, hey, how do we know we're having success? So I want to ask you around that, like how do you define success when it comes to developing leaders or taking someone through a course like that? What does that look like? And do you find yourself like creating, I don't know, some business cases or just data around what people should think about when it comes to that? Because I think that's probably one of the biggest questions is, hey, there's an investment here. How do we know it worked? Any thoughts
Yeah.
around that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of benchmarking I did over the years just to get a sense for. So oftentimes, which really drove me to create this course is I was brought in many, many, probably more times than not, because there was a situation in the organization. There was a performance improvement plan
Mm,
that needed to be put into place, or there was an HR investigation. I've done many of them in the past. I've done them for my clients, and I know what that means. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're 1 foot out the door,
mm,
but it's the problem has already happened. It's a very reactive approach to leadership. And I wanted to make sure this was more of a proactive approach.
mm,
So when I start seeing successes when they actually implement what they learn and they give me examples and I call up and say, okay, I know that you're going to have that meeting on Thursday. Let's talk. Do you have everything in line? Yes, I do. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to do this, Kim. Or they'll even have me come in during the meetings just so they're on the right track.
mm,
Because the last thing we want to do is we don't want to wind up in a litigious situation. And that's the biggest fear of most leaders. They don't know what to say, so they don't say anything at all. So I
mm.
teach them to lean into that uncomfortable. And when they do, and they report back, and even their leaders report back to me, it's a beautiful sound. Love it.
Well, when you use the word performance improvement plan, PIP, or investigation, it's just so draining. Like when you
It
said
is.
that, it just like it pulled my energy away from me. And then all of a sudden you put into words like things that are excited about, people going, developing different things like that. It gives you energy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And most of the organizations that do this, they take responsibility saying, you know what, we've fallen down here and we've got to do better for our leaders. So it's sometimes, something that has to happen for us to see the light. I'm out there to kind of bring the light before the trip and fall
Yeah.
is my hope.
Someone that's listening right now
Yeah.
and they're like, hey, you know what? I need to start developing my team more intentional or more purposeful. I'm not ready to start a big program. I just want to like start small. Any thoughts around that? Maybe some advice you might share for someone listening right now that might kind of say, "Hey, let's go ahead and start putting something into practice."
Yep. I would always say do those one-on-one meetings immediately because
Mm,
most of the time they're not happening. And so some will say, I don't have the time. And I say, well, it was a matter of life and death, would you?
mm,
Said, well, of course. And I said, well, you have to make the time. You have to make the time. 99% of the folks that have problems aren't doing those meetings. Now, they don't
mm,
have to be every week for hours. At first, they can be once a week or a couple of times a month,
mm,
meet with each individual and just ask them to share with you
mm,
what's going on. What would they do to change? Like, what would they see to have change? Like, what do we want for 2025? Just ask open-ended questions. And the next step is to absolutely listen. Don't
mm,
hear what they have to say to respond. Just listen without saying anything at all, but take notes and taking into consideration, that they're being heard.
mm.
It's so listening is probably the biggest problem in most cases, whether
Yeah.
you're at work or
I
not.
love the word you used before that. Actively listen.
Actively.
Actively make sure that you are fully present. I love that. Hey, I want to drill down just a little, and I gave you a few questions before we kind of started, but I was just thinking about this as you said, hey, actively listen or one-on-one, meet with them one-on-one, take some notes, actively listen. I don't know, just and this is kind of a basic question, but somebody listening, it might be helpful. Do you use like a notebook for each person? Do you use how do you organize that? Any thought, like how would someone be a good way to organize that? Because like me, it seems like I have like 10 journals, I've got, and just keeping up with them. But what about for coaching? Would you recommend a coaching journal? What's your thoughts around that?
So it can open a can of worms, but I'm going to try and cut it down to a very simple thing. So performance evaluations is always something that either gets done and it's done without real intention. It's just kind of everybody gets a 5 out of 1 to 5 because they feel like it's too much work.
Hmm.
So what these one-on-ones do is the reason why I always say to do them at least once or twice a month is our brains only remember the last couple of months. So if someone was performing well from January through September, and
Hmm.
they were kind of falling off track towards the end of the year, guess what's going to happen? Those bad moments are going to be thought of first, and that's going to really affect whether they get a merit raise or anything like that. So these one-on-ones not only are an opportunity to remember what you discussed, but yes, you do have one for each person. You have to have an actual journal, but you
Hmm.
can have notes on a system just to remember the conversation, like I do with my clients.
Yeah.
And when those performance evaluation times comes around, these tools should be used as a growing tool, not a disciplinary tool.
Hmm.
So you remember all the things that you go, hey, Bruce, you did a great job today. Thank you so much. Those micro moments and or cover things before they become a huge issue so that you're nipping it in the bud ahead of time. So when those performance evaluations come around, they're just a breeze,
Hmm.
and I'm part of I help organizations put those together as well so
Oh,
that they
that's
are.
great. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you shared that because that's what the question I was going to ask is, do you help, even
Yes,
like
absolutely.
coach up the coach
Yes,
or like a train
absolutely.
the trainer?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You just kind of shift their mindset around that, oh, the performance evaluation, it's going to be due in a couple of months. They keep putting it off till tomorrow. And they make it worse than it really needs to be.
Yeah.
But if you're really good and intentional, you can get through them.
Hey, I want to ask you this. What do you say to those out there listening that they say, "Hey, but I have a couple of people on my team. They don't want to learn. They don't want to grow. They just want to do their job." Any thoughts around that?
Hey, listen, there are a lot of people out there that say, I like what I do. I'm comfortable with everything that I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to do my job. They're just as intentional having those one-on-ones because
Mm,
they can be just as contributing to, okay, this is what I do. I could be better if we did this, this, and this. Always give everybody an opportunity for feedback and collaboration.
mm.
And it's great if you have somebody that doesn't want, they just like where they are, that's perfectly fine. You're going to have all walks of life. It's all good.
Yeah, everybody wants to be valued. Everybody wants to be heard. Even if
Absolutely.
they are given signs that they don't really want to grow, they're still important to the organization in that particular role. So I appreciate you sharing that. I know that's probably a question a lot of people have, and that is, should I coach those who don't want to be coached? And coaching and just listening and having that one-on-one conversation can be enough, right?
Absolutely. They might not be doing anything that's needs
Yeah,
addressing, but
yeah,
you still want their feedback. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
This is
Give them
so
some
good. I love this. Man, this is so good. Hey, I want to ask you this question. I have one more question before we go to it's time to accelerate. And the question's around advice. And I've been given some great advice. You've given some great advice today, but were you ever given any advice? Maybe it was during your career while you were serving as an HR leader, or maybe it was before that, or since. Anybody ever given you any advice? It was just so good for you. You just find yourself sharing it with others.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the L word, listen.
Mm,
And the reason why I say that is I implement it with my daughter had told me years ago, she wanted to talk to me. She was early teens, in high school, all that. And I was kept trying to fix her problem. And she
mm,
sat me down. She said, Mom, I don't need Coach Kim. I just need my mom. And that was the most pivotal time. And I said, I need to listen as much as I tell others to listen because I wanted to help my girl. And it is the best for every relationship. For the ones that people don't listen, they just want to talk, they talk over you or whatever. It's such a strong communication tool, and not many people know how to do it well.
mm,
They don't know how to do it well, and it's very impactful. So listen intently with the
mm.
folks that you want to grow a relationship with.
In my book, Life in the Leadership Lane, I have a chapter called Developing Influence. It's actually called Speaking Influence. So it's around developing your influence in the organization. And there's these different factors that go into it, right? Building trust and defining a problem and building a business case and being persistent and believing in what you're doing. But the trust piece of when I went out to many HR business leaders actually, and said, "Hey, what do you think of when you think of building trust?" The majority of people sent me back like lots of different things, but the majority had listening on there. It's
Yeah.
so important, and it's many people don't do it very well, and they don't know how to do. It's listening. It's a vital skill, isn't it?
It's a vital skill. And when I ask leaders, do they feel that they're trusted? They often say yes.
Mm,
But when you ask the group, it's imbalanced.
mm,
And so it might be deeply imbalanced or slightly imbalanced, but it's
yeah.
imbalanced. So it's a tough thing for me to bring up with them because it stings. And who likes being told what you need to do better?
Mm.
But it's something that I make sure that they know off the bat, because otherwise I wouldn't be needed.
This is so great. I have just enjoyed my time here, Kim, with you talking leadership. I know that, again, I know the listeners are getting a lot out of this. I'm going to shift over to It's Time to Accelerate. I got a few questions, kind of some fun questions. The first question I want to ask you is like, you talk about helping other people. You talk about helping companies develop leaders, and you're helping so many people. But what about you? What are you doing to develop yourself to continue to grow as a leader? Any thoughts around that? Books, podcasts?
I do a ton of podcasts. I'm like I said earlier, I'm a psychology nerd, so I'm a nonfiction reader and listener.
Mm.
So I love that. I work out every morning to make sure
Mm.
I'm ready to go for the day. It's been something that's important to me. But yeah, I make sure that I'm always trying to hone my skills in every facet, whether it's emotional intelligence, whether it's tactical HR stuff. It's just it's important to me, so
Yeah.
I can be the
I'm
best.
hearing a lot about emotional intelligence, the power of that and the importance of that. I don't know, I guess maybe you read any good books on that? Any thoughts around that?
Especially in today's climate, it's just one of those things where just give someone else some grace. That's all you need to do. Don't
Mm.
judge them, just give them some grace. Ton of great books out there. Goldman is a good author for it.
Hmm.
It's there. I mean, there's just so many. I wouldn't even be fair if I didn't mention all of
I
them.
love
But
that.
it's yeah. I would recommend that everybody read a book on emotional
Yeah.
intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. This is so good. I love that. What are you looking forward to most in 2025? Any big things ahead?
So my course that I'm and it's not just because of my course, but it's just something that I know that I can get out to many people with a ton of support. It's an opportunity for people to come in a confidential setting and really kind of share the challenges that they have because they don't often do it with their colleagues. So I'm excited about launching that and getting on more stages so I can get in front of the folks and just let them know that there's help out there. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
I love that. And if send me the information on that, I'll make sure and put the link in the show notes so people can connect with you and learn more about that. I love that. Hey, I have one more question, probably my favorite question I like to ask. Kim, 10 years older, is around the corner and she's knocking at your door, and you're going to go answer that door. What's she going to tell you?
It's going to say, don't give up because there's going to be
Mm,
a lot of pushback. Just keep going. Just keep going. And because I love what I do, that's not a problem. But it's certainly something where it's like, just even when it gets hard, keep going. And so those leaders out there that are just having a hard time going to work on Mondays,
mm,
just know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Don't give up.
mm.
Don't
I
give
love
up.
that.
Don't give up.
So inspiring. I love that. That's a wise 10 years older Kim Laughlin. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your perspective today with the listeners. Hey, so if someone heard something you shared and they want to connect with you, or they just want to follow you and learn more about you, what's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, you can find Kim Laughlin at Cultural Apex Coaching on LinkedIn. You can email me at kim@culturalapexcoach.com, or you can go to my website, culturalapexcoach.com.
Yeah, perfect. I'll put all those in the show notes so they can connect with you. And if you connect with Kim, be sure and let her know, hey, I heard you on Life in the Leadership Lane. Share something that maybe she shared that was impactful. I know that'll make the connection that much better. So I appreciate you. I appreciate Rex for connecting us. I'm so glad to have you on the show. And I can't wait to watch your journey ahead. Thanks for coming on, Kim.
Thank you, Bruce.
Awesome. All right. I can't wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.